This is Heart Rhythm TV. We are back together talking late-breaking science, AI, new friendships, old friendships, and rekindling it. And our wrap-up starts now. So we're coming to you from New Orleans. Day one in the books. We've got the whole Heart Rhythm TV crew. What did we see today? What was interesting? Dan.
So I just came from the late-breaking clinical trial session on ventricular arrhythmias. A lot of great stuff presented, but as Suneet just said before, it's all about the AI. What jumped out at me was the ECG AI for predicting sudden cardiac death from a single lead ECG. These trialists took over 100,000 ambulatory monitors, okay, from over 6 countries. 1,000 of those people had sustained VT, and they applied an ECG AI algorithm to predict the development of sustained VT. Now, they didn't necessarily document sudden cardiac death, but sustained VT, and they were able to use demographic data, QRS, T-wave information to create this smart algorithm for predicting who's going to develop it, and they made the claim that this could be done within hours to days before it actually occurred. So huge implications for smart monitoring in the hospital, for smart monitoring out of the hospital, but early data, we're going to learn more soon.
So precognition is here, potentially through AI. And in that ventricular space, we saw more worldwide needle experience, Clint?
Yeah, earlier in the day today, we heard finally some of this needle data that's been brewing with Bill Stevenson and Usha Tedrow. We all have these difficult mid-myocardial substrates. There's lots of creative ways to go about trying to get deeper lesions. But in this trial, they showed that there was a really sharp response to PVCs especially. They quoted an 89% acute PVC elimination. And at 6 months, it was still 78%. VT was a little less so, but these are sick populations and redo and salvage procedures for those folks. So really promising, I think.
Clear signal that we need help in that space, but we also need someone to fund this needle as well, which I know Bill Stevenson and Usha have been, putting out a very passionate plea for.
Absolutely.
But we need help in that space. Julie, there were some new guidelines, some remote monitoring, big breaking news.
So last remote monitoring guidelines came out in 2015. So this is now an update in 2023 about managing patients with remote monitoring in device clinics. So one of the biggest things that came out of this was staffing, that they came out and actually came out with a number and said that there should be 3 full-time employees, can be clinical or non-clinical, to every 1,000 patients that you have on remote monitoring. And amazingly, there was like a collective gasp and sigh of relief from the audience that they actually had a visceral response to this. The data has been needed so badly. Yeah,
we're not having to lobby our own administration to say, I need this many nurses. There is clear guidance on this, right, Sunny? This is a game changer?
Absolutely. Today for me was 3 things. One, the remote monitoring. I had the pleasure of working with Julie for a while on this thing, so it was great to see it and see the positive response to it. Yep. Number 2, as you know, I'm all about walking the posters, and it was so good to see the paper posters back.
You and Mandrola are very happy.
Oh, I'm
that the
very
posters
happy.
Are back.
Like it couldn't
Big
have come
social
at a
media
better
campaign
time.
about seeing posters.
Absolutely.
Printing them up, coming out of boxes. It's old school.
Yeah, I love it. And the third thing, I saw you were at the investigator meeting with me, the official launch of the Left versus Left trial, really important trial in our field, looking at CRT-eligible patients, randomizing them to CRT versus conduction system pacing, long follow-up, and this is going to be a really, really important trial. So an amazingly packed and fun first day.
And Mahek, you were off stage wrangling those coming off with late-breaking science. You were at the first session with me. What did you like there?
I thought the LEAF trial was very fascinating because we're starting to see Jeff Goldberger presented the results, and we're seeing more and more interest in atrial fibrillation risk factor modification. Weight loss is a huge part of that, and approaching our patient holistically and using medications like liraglutide to help them lose weight is a big part of it. And this trial did show that there was more freedom from AFib. One patient didn't even need an ablation because it reverted back with weight loss. So I think it was a very thought-provoking trial, and more to come on that.
Yeah, and we're building a cardiometabolic center, so I think it's very clear that more comprehensive risk factor adjustment, just doing the veins, is not enough total substrate modification. Really importantly, we have the man down from under, the big guy here to my left, who's finally here in person from Australia. So really global EP. Peter Kistler, what did you see today? that you loved.
Yeah, I also managed to catch the late breakers, and I think we've done really well to go this far into our wrap-up without mentioning PFA, so I'm going to bring it in now. And there were two, of course, PFA. One was the long-term outcomes of PFA, so not only does it look durable, but it looks safe. And what I thought was really interesting was actually just two of the patients who at the initial routine reassessment of their pulmonary veins, they were isolated, and then they subsequently came back with recurrence and had reconnection. And I always thought, well, if the veins are going to reconnect, it's going to be relatively early, but maybe that's not necessarily the case. And then Atul Verma spoke about this correlation between AF burden and quality of life measures.
That's from the Pulse
which
AF.
was, from Pulse AF. And I thought that was super interesting because we're all wrestling with what should be the primary endpoint of AF outcome trials, whether they're ablation trials, whether they're risk factor modification trials. You know, we're moving on from this freedom from AF, this 30-second stuff. Is it AF
Amen.
burden? And what Atul really nicely showed was that this cutoff of 10% in AF burden, if you're under 10%, quality of life's up, healthcare utilisation down. So I thought it was a great session.
You know, Peter, what struck me also about Manifest AF was in those reconnection patients, they talked about the algorithm that was used. And it sounds like the early algorithms had more reconnection than this kind of the later, more refined algorithm. So I think we still have a lot to learn for how to do PFA, what algorithm, how many pulses, et cetera. But as we learn, we're only going to get better.
No, absolutely. I mean, with RF, it's taken us nearly 20 years to optimize everything, and you know, we're just at the beginning with PFA.
So we also had a packed room for women's and EP lunch, and we also saw the 5-year data from Encore from Phil Kukulich showing there's some durability with the SBRT results and continued safety. So really exciting late-breaking science,
plenary.
guidelines coming out.
The plenary
and the
was
plenary,
great.
the kickoff. We had a jazz band, we had a Grammy Award-winning singer,
Yeah.
and Kalyanam Shivkumar talking about the history
History
of
of EP.
anatomy, invasive cardiology, all the way to EP, and that's what's bringing us together. So a great day one for us, all in Nolans here, coming to you from Heart Rhythm Sessions 2023. Time to get some beignets and some cocktails.
Yeah. In that
And we'll see you tomorrow for day 2. More late-breaking science, more AI, more collaboration, and more guidelines. Stay tuned.